One of my favourite pitches, to be honest. Absolutely love Cork. It was the perfect arena, the bold shape of it. When you're down on the pitch, you can feel the tension.
The Páirc, in my mind, took a lot of unfair stick from a supporter's point of view. There wasn't a bad seat in the house.
Níl bhíon náisiún in éachrán ach bí meice é do aon den a greibh simigé le san pedal máinte go.
Ins na cluichí móra sin, ní raibh éon áidile a bhí níos iróní das na cluichí sin, chun an atmosfér sin a crothú ná Páirc Chaoimh.
It was a very intimidating stadium to play in, like, because the crowd were really in the top of you. There was many a day I heard the Cork man call me a langer.
It was a really surreal experience to see, hey, that's Michael Jackson at the City End.
Like, the pitch itself was still fabulous, like a full house there. It was still great to play in it, but the surroundings were becoming obsolete long before they decided to move on it.
The future for Páirc Chaoimh is probably a lot brighter than its past.
What an atmosphere. It is quite incredible. The last big day here, but after that, well, there'll be a new stadium and a new beginning. But today, well, it's all about these two teams.
Fantastic atmosphere. The colour, there's brilliant excitement. There's a great sense of anticipation that you always get at a Munster final.
An ba háchtaí ná go múirí sin clé. Ní bhíon éon rá seo beidir an clé deirg a bheith go going nó an craobh na mún deirg a bheith go going a Páirc Chaoimh nó Pháirc mar sin de. Ní spuoiníonn tú an rudí sin, right? Níl tú ag spuoineh a star.
There it is! Cork are the champions of Munster hurling.
From a Cork perspective, the Páirc Chaoimh story couldn't have had a happier ending before the €70 million redevelopment begins. The bulldozers will arrive in January, and by the Championship 2017, a brand new invigorating stadium will be built here.
I suppose it was a sentimental day for people. They knew it was the last day in Páirc Chaoimh for Cork people going to club matches, league matches. People had their own section at the stand they always went to, so people will be wondering when the new stadium opens where they'll sit, etc.
I think it was obvious way before it became time, especially the dressing rooms were a farce to start, like, because they were so small. I mean, I think it was made for 7-a-side or something. I mean, they were very badly designed since the start. It's 1976, but it's not that long ago, like.
Sa chuid sin den chathair talamh nó atá an dá riara a tógadh ón áing aber I lár na néomhaoise díog, agus duine dréanáil air agus líana isteach air. Agus an chiad ionad sport nó láthair sport a bhí ann ná rás chóirsa, Cork Park Race Course os glíoh don chéadúir in 1869. Agus de bhar an ráscórsa sin go dtí 1970 ach bhí cluichíola á immert sa cheantar ag an am, cuarsa le haig lúclasíochta ann, agus son sa bhliain 1903 go dtí 1904 tógadh Páirc le haig Pell agus I Maint an chéad athletic grounds mar a gléadar ag an am. Nuair a oscailíodh an Pháirc in 1904 imríodh an dá cluiche ceannis na hÉireann ann. Corcaigh a bhuaigh an cluiche amánaíocht a gandát agus blá clia a bhuaigh craobh na Pelle an bhliain sin.
Well, Cork Athletic Grounds, tá sé dechar an is, right, cosís dhéanamh ar mar, you know, tá tú caint faoi beidir, we say, gachhéad bhliain ó in áiríre. Bhí an drompla má go rá, but a bhíoh sé faoi scúranta híos ag an taobh clé. Bhí 60 beag ann déanta Chaoimh agus taobh híos tíobh san bhí na seomraí festas agus is minic go ná do bhíoh puil beagas na síocáns mar sin agus minic go gluisfá cad a bhí rá híos an son. Mar mise agus mar chun óga ag dul an bhí dríocht ag buint leis mar bhíoh na cluichí sreathain, bhíoh cluichí móra clubónas mar sin agus bhí tú ag fécinn ar na réaltaí.
The pitch itself was very, very good, but like the dressing rooms, we used to call them the black hole colour.
At a press conference less than 3 years ago, the announcement was made that the county board would carry out a major project at the athletic grounds. When work began 2 years The new stadium, it was designed with the specific purpose of providing the most modern facilities and the best possible view for every spectator.
The park opened on the 6th of June. It was my last time being a spectator at a Cork match. The following Sunday, I was parachuted in with the hurling team. And a few Sundays after that, the first football match.
Ik genoom, ik heb maar gestad aan een Chaoimh fad behe. Dinog an oscailt offigiúil de bhí chlár beidir land dahad nómatród ag mar sin agus is cuinlam bhí ardán beag istigh lá na parc agus bhí roint ceoltóirí agus óránhain bhí me héann.
And I know a Páirc Cuimh space age, you know, like size on made of your agus na hardán taobh here and cool agus bhí sé size mar bóil más maiile agus bhreadat bheith gimmart down agus captú go lift to mar size realta like ag gimmart ar Sinaid seo Stadmore cosúla bit ar Twickenham nó bit ar Hampden Park na mar sin do.
Coming to Jimmy Barry Murphy, he'll be first to it. Cork will be very happy with that. And Hartigan picking it out of the air. And it's a goal.
The football final overshadowed it, but the hurling, we played Limerick in the final, and it was a very good game of hurling. Eamon Cregan scored 4 goals and a point, I think, that day, and still was on the losing side. So it was a good win, a good day, and a fine big crowd there, you know.
Bhuaigh Cork ag héasca, but an ceolmór an bhliain sin seachta sé ná clé pelle idir Cork agus Kerry.
This is the dramatic scene in Páirc Cuimh, Cork's magnificent new stadium, which was only opened a month ago. And from the early hours, the fans have been pouring in, and the crowd's way over the 40,000. Already they're spilling over onto the sidelines in this packed capacity crowd.
It was the first time, obviously, the stadium had filled up. The crowd were all over the pitch, behind the goals, on the sideline. I remember to watch standing on the sideline, and in the first few minutes, my classmate and friend Brendan Lynch, playing with Kerry, landed at my feet with Kevin Gailey, the fellow he was marking on top of him. Brendan's brother Paddy jumped in on top of him, and there was a free-for-all. I was there looking at it and saying, what the hell is going on here? And that was my introduction.
The Gardaí already appearing. Unfortunately, because of the packed attendance here, the crowd spilled in over the wire, off the terraces, onto the sideline, and they're sitting all along.
Crazy day. It was way overpacked. They were talking about 50,000 holding it, but I'd say there was probably 60,000 down there. People out of curiosity, this new stadium and everything, and they were all around the side of the pitch, up the sidelines, around behind the goal. Kerry goalkeeper going, collecting the ball in between fellas' feet and that sort of thing. And when we scored in the last, I think I scored the equalising point in the last couple of minutes, and everyone ran on the pitch, and it was bedlam. It was a complete farce altogether for everyone.
Dennis Allen, could we have a draw in this monster
We were then back into the situation the following week of playing them again down there, so it was forgotten very quick, and we got completely 2 opposite days. The first day was wet, rainy, a bit muddy. The second day was blistering hot, one of the hottest days we ever had.
That's the scene today in Páirc Cuimh for the replay of the Munster football final, and the huge crowd here, there they are in most orderly fashion, wiping out the memories of the disaster here 2 weeks ago. First score, and that's what it does after 1 minute. Hussein is calling, and knocks it into the net. What a simple goal!
The replay I will never forget, because it was the day of the 2 goals, one given and one not allowed. The first one, we were 4 points up with a few minutes to go, and they got a free, and Mikey Sheehy took a short one to Sean Welsh.
Mike Sheehy quickly.
His shot, Brian Murphy was standing on the line, held it, cleared it, but the umpires who were standing behind, thinking Mikey Sheehy would put the ball over the bar, deemed that the ball was over the line, but it never was, and to my dying day, I'll swear to that. And from the kick out, we went straight down, and Declan Barron fisted the ball to the net. And the referee gave a square ball, and it was shown many times later that Declan was not inside the square.
No, bhí mis taobh here an cúla rilling, connic mé an roiid bhí sé las mise den ceanóg ceapas gribh robáil déanta don cúil sin. Ní a bhéon srongán nó an bríomhthán agus bheog nach raibh bit a roiir home.
And there is just some confusion. Some people think that the scores are level. That scoreboard isn't right. It's level and it looks like extra time.
Looking back now, I don't think we had any chance in extra time. Fellas were shattered inside in the dressing room after the match, and we had to go back out again. There was only one team in extra time.
We always feel that Kerry took off after that, and it took us a long time to beat them. We didn't beat them in the championship until '83 in the Páirc, which was one of the sweetest days.
Left-hand forward, Dave Barry. Right corner forward, Dennis Allen. Full forward, John Allen. And left full forward.
Gleithe ceannis na móna bléitú. Bhí círaí thóir a naú chréamh as a céil. Níor denna gríomha. Bhí ó cín búta go hana. Agus bhí lán daoine dúrmail bútha siad a naú ceann.
We kind of were going out just to do our best. We didn't have much belief in ourselves. The weather in the morning, thunder and lightning, and 17,000 turned up at the match, which was small, even like for a team that was, they had much confidence in them, and probably the crowd were right too, like the record we had up to that. So 17,000 at the match.
I'd love to say I was there, but kind of like Thomond Park in 1978, the 4,000 or 5,000 who were there. It was an unbelievably bad day. There was thunder and lightning. Niall Cahalane said he wasn't going to come up from Union Hall because the telephone actually blew off the wall at home in West Cork.
Agus bhí cluiche maith peile ann, as is cín go maithe, bhí scóran na maithe ann, ag an dáin.
Look at the speed of Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen with the...
Ach bhí círaí chun tosaigh, I teachta drón deire.
Over to Sean Walsh it is.
As bhí cuma an scéal, gur a cotha bheith an bua. As is cín an cúla fuair corcaigh.
I can go through it as if it was in slow motion. Ball was kicked out. Tiggy Riley kicked a 40-yard pass up to me. I picked the ball clear off the ground. Paddy wrapped his arms around me, fell down. Free in. Tiggy Riley was coming from the position he was after kicking the ball from and said to me, get out of the effing way, because I was standing over it. I stepped aside. Tiggy floated it into the square inside.
Could Cork have one last chance? That's it to Tyke Murphy. Yes, it's in. Tyke Murphy.
Ball was kicked over and 30 seconds later the match was over. We had won by a point. Like, never happened to me before, which was a nice feeling, I must say.
What an astonishing finish. Páirc has just gone mad.
An méide imróí chéirí a cúige dró duine eile. Mar is cín lumsa duine ige marta go láir na 97 éon bhliain 10 rivisin. Is móir dimmer seol na dhéag sin, agus ní bhór sé a chéad bhain a gúige mún go dtí 98 Agus sin éon fágra peladóir a chéire dal na Rómar bhí anna bheasa goir agus bhí anna hena goir.
Even though we all rejoiced, obviously, on the streets at the downfall of Kerry, I have to say I wasn't there. And most people who say they were there are lying, unfortunately.
We were very happy to have got a replay. I think it was 2-11 each on that particular day, and we were always chasing the game. Nobody knew after the game where the game was going to be on. Dublin would never have travelled outside of Croke Park for an All-Ireland semi-final.
In the train that night, after drawing the match, Kevin Cahill says to me, it's great to get Dublin out of Croke Park. He says, they're not used to being out of Croke Park. We'll have the buzz, we have the impetus. But I said, I don't like it. He says, what's wrong with you? I'd rather go back to Croke Park. We're going to be made favourites by our home crowd and by possibly, because we played so well before, by the papers and whatever else. And I don't like it. I'd rather go back to Croke Park. He told me I was mad. And I didn't want to be right, I can assure you.
A week of patient waiting has come to an end for Cork's colourful support in the 43,000 crowd gathered in Páirc for the replay of the All-Ireland football semi-final. But the Dubs are there in force too for this most eagerly awaited clash of these counties who served up such thrilling fare in the drawn game at Croke Park just a week ago. And hello again to you and welcome to this special programme, in which we feature tonight almost complete coverage of the All-Ireland football semi-final replay at Páirc between Dublin and Cork.
The Dubs were coming, hordes of Vandals and Visigoths out of the north, and you'd have to clear out of Cork, and your children wouldn't be safe, they'd be roasted on a spit. You know, the Dubs would pile off the train. Of course, there was none of that. It was a great occasion.
What a colourful scene it is, created by the vast throng of football fans, the biggest hosting at a sports fixture ever here in Cork, surely.
Bhí slú áilmhór a láthair, agus bhí atmosfér den scothán. Agus an rud a hahan go mór leis na daoine bhí stíl. Chuig na himróirí amach ar a Páirc, in an gná the jeans agus na rudaí sin.
Kevin Heffron just told us to go out and we just got an unbelievable reception. The hair would stand the back of your neck and your blood would be pumping at that stage, and we still were over about an hour and a quarter before the game. Fellas were just itching to get dressed and get out in the field for the start of the game.
So we're here participating in a moment of history, the first All-Ireland semi-final in football to be played outside Croke Park in over 4 decades.
Rud a smó ná an atmosfér. Páirc blá clia agus Corca. Páirc chrócaí 2000 agus 7 éirin agus Sasna. Agus in Giant Stadium an Uárach, Craven Down san soccer. Sinead an 3 onad is smó chunig me atmosfér a ria. Just bhí me árdaí as a musca tráchtanachta. Na Dubs on tour agus hiad hís a Gorca, agus bhí sárt lefa an.
Early minutes, and it's in, yes! Brian Mullins has made it!
They were just brilliant, and we never got into the match. Brian Mullins dominated the first half. He refereed the match, he played the match, he had a blinder in the match, he scored a penalty. He did everything. He did a bit of damage as well, physically. And he walked off at half-time with PJ McGrath as the referee. He walked off at half-time talking to the referee with his hand around his shoulder. That's what you call a conductor of an orchestra, isn't it?
People are saying the Dubs should be taken out of Croke Park for matches. You know, be careful what you wish for, because they were fantastic that day. It was a great occasion. It was disappointing for Cork, but, you know, the expected sacking of the city by the hordes from Dublin didn't actually occur.
Cork were always missing something, I felt, from the late 70s, early 80s, and that was a consistent free taker. You know, with Larry Tompkins coming to play with Cork, that turned Cork around completely.
To beat Kerry 2 years in a row was quite unusual, you know, but we went another 2 years as well, afterwards, 89 and 90 as well, so 4 years in a row beating Kerry there's very few people can say that.
That great Kerry team, it was nearly their dying kick. They kind of put the nail in that great Kerry team coffin that a lot of them then were dropping off after that.
You always felt in Cork that it was very intimidating. It affected a lot of players, you know, and I found a lot of players mightn't play as good in Cork as they would in Croke Park because you had the openness of Croke Park and, you know, you just feel the crowd so close to you. Big days, tight games, you can really feel the atmosphere there. Like, it was great in that respect, you know, so I just hope it never loses that with the redevelopment, that it'll still hold that uniqueness.
Is dóí ó bhí Sean McBride óg go raithin chuileáin é mar mhac mar gan. Ní éadach sé éalóhaid sin. Thig sé freisin go raibh bháthair súil leis go ndéanach sé rudí móra, go ndéanach sé éachtaí, gomach sé chuine a chuireach saoir sin na tíre chun cín.
I think she gave him an independence of spirit and a capacity to act and work on things. But I guess she gave him permission to be whoever he wanted to be in the end.
At Permanent TSB, our mortgage gives you 2% cashback at drawdown, and now 2% cashback on your monthly repayments when you pay from an Explore account until 2027. Meaning speed.ie.
There's lots to love this Mother's Day at Aldi.
like beautiful fresh flowers, my mum's favourite. Soothing scented candles, she likes those too. And some mums like a tipple, or two, or a good old pampering. Hope my mum's not watching, it'll spoil her surprise.
As the COVID-19 crisis escalates, trusted information is vital. The Business Post is available in stores and online with the news and analysis you need to make sense of current events. Our Coronavirus Ireland podcast and daily newsletter are available free, while subscribers can gain access to our Sunday edition and daily updates. For more, see businesspost.ie.
Tastes light and refreshing. This is Rockshore.
To play at your best, the slightest adjustments can make all the difference. Every move, every turn, every angle. And when you shave, it's no different. Mach 3 Turbo, made for expert control. Skin Guard, made to help stop irritation. ProGlide, made for our ultimate closeness. So whatever you face, you can always show your best side. Gillette, made of what matters.
You'd have to throw that one back, Mr. Thompson.
There's a glass and a half in everyone.
The Echo, the examiner, of a couple of teenagers lying on the ground kissing, and that's all. But there were 5 or 6 guys standing around with their cans looking at them, and this was like an all-time low of debauchery and sinfulness in Cork. And when you think now Swedish House Mafia and this kind of stuff, it just looks so innocent.
We had Chris Christopherson, we had Glenn Campbell, we had John Denver, Leo Sayer, went all up along the line then until the major change then was U2. They were huge at the time. They had played Croke Park, they had a soft spot for Cork, and they agreed to do it. That really opened the door then, all of the other big international names, because U2 played it.
So you wanna be starting something, you got to be starting something. Oh, you wanna be starting something, you got to be starting something.
It was a really surreal experience to see, hey, that's Michael Jackson at the City End.
When you think about it now, the fact that Michael Jackson and Prince played in Páirc Creeve, it's kind of amazing. And I suppose when you're conditioned to go to GA matches, you look around and you're going, what have they done to the place? This is amazing, you know?
Tonight, Cork City will be the venue for Europa 93.
The Zoo TV experience is about to begin very shortly, and the fans are still pouring into Páirc Creeve.
The Zoo TV tour was a massive spectacle for its time. Bono had this Mephisto character, he's like a kind of a devil character. In the second half of the show, he'd make a phone call and he had this sort of accent he'd put on. It was all very, you know, and yeah, he rang Frank Murphy. He rang Frank Murphy, possibly, I think, to ask for more time because the time limits in Páirc Creeve, in terms of it was a residential area, like, so the time limit was very short, like, so he was kind of asking for a little bit more time to play. Of course, the crowd loved it, you know, but needless to say, Frank didn't answer. I presume Frank was out. Went straight to answering machine anyway, so I presume Frank was out somewhere else, or maybe he was at the gig.
Páirc Creeve has in the past hosted the likes of U2 and Michael Jackson. This is the first ever non-Gaelic Games sports event to be held at the venue. When Collins and Eubank step into the ring tonight, upwards of 20,000 people are expected here at Páirc Creeve, the biggest grossing boxing event ever held in this country.
The Collins-Eubank fight in '95, it was a sequel to Collins-Eubank in Mill Street. And, you know, there was all this sort of stuff about, you know, Collins had hypnotised himself to go into, you know, and all this kind of hype about whatever was going on. And it kind of spooked Eubank. But in the time in between the rematch in Páirc Creeve, Eubank had a couple of fights, looked in good shape, and actually went into that fight as favourite.
Bhí me caintear muscail seachtareacht narí méidir na pelagus amáinte Páirc Creeve, ach nair tá tú na darnálaíochta, tá tú uisceach 9 áirlaí gon rópa. Tá tú ná de lá. Bhí me sin ná má lá bhí legan Steve Collins an naithe sin.
There's about 35,000 people at it. And Eubank obviously had this certain style about him, even as a boxer. He was kind of standoffish, sort of pick his shots, and he was a devastating counterpuncher, a superb fighter. But Collins decided to go pell-mell at him from the word go, and it was literally like windmilling towards him from round one.
Round one.
Threw himself out of the ring a couple of times trying to catch Eubank, which was fine, went on. Eubank just couldn't get his head around this at all. The crowd was going mental.
We think the cut might have happened there. Harla gur bhfuiln dách legan fi chéile sa seachtó báta, agus bhí gara mór mílteach Steve Collins, agus bhí fatis arab, bhín dochtúr a breanúa a húl. Sínú cear go uirinta.
Chúg bhátá Páirc seo, Páirc Chaoimh.
And by the end of the 8th or 9th round, Collins was still wailing into Eubank in this very kind of unorthodox, it would look unskilled. But obviously the idea was to knock Eubank completely out of his stride, not give him the chance to counterpunch, and just, you know, absolutely just throw him completely off of his rhythm. By the time it got to the 10th and 11th round, when Collins did eventually start to tire and Eubank started picking him off, the fight was already won. In fact, the biggest shock of that night was that it was a split decision.
Will Collins, Eubank a ma. Darish and the tactici, vi she gunsi a gunsi, ach in chéadre dele cholamid. We go to the judge's card. First judge, 115, 113 to Eubank. Now, Mara Harlasha, Rá muach Eubank and Tread, Vech Ravelóid a Páirc Chaoimh, Ravelóid a Vechan, mar bhua Collins and Tread go héasca.
In favour of the winner and still Super
Hartar 5 second tar héis an ógra sin I dhéanamh, tháinig sé an-ghar domsa. Agus sin an tám I hiagmuid gur an uaim, gur deacrachtaí fuaime ag Sky. Agus dúirt me léir a thuirm, brúisteach an le Collins, brúisteach, cheapan go an uaim imi. Agus just aber a couple of focal beod is an nair. Agus leis sin, dar me láimh seo tíhíorcham. Agus ní an me dearmad go deo na focla dúirt an fearr. Dúirt sé, George, I think the sound is gone. And I think this bald-headed bollocks speaking the Mongolese has got something to do with it.
Páirc Chaoimh to have had that fight, it's a kind of half-forgotten thing now, but it was a huge moment in Steve Collins' career. Steve Collins, who's the most successful Irish professional boxer of all time. So Páirc Chaoimh, you know, holds a very, very significant place in the
GAA now. There's a war going on in Cork GAA. At the moment, the County Board is in session discussing the crisis in Páirc Chaoimh.
In 1999, Cork hurlers returned to a hero's welcome after winning the Liam McCarthy Cup. But just 3 years on, hurling in the rebel county is in crisis. Despite Cork having one of the richest GAA boards with assets in the region of €14 million, last Friday their hurlers held a press conference and announced that they were going on strike after talks with their board over travel, ticket allocation and playing kits broke down.
Bhí mar ag dul in ag gód le daoine like ribh ré agus in ag like bhíidir sa siomra festas agus go háir in ag bua like bhí mar ag clóra lena céile, you know, agus in ag son then ar feadh cúpla bín kinda bhí asientas like idir na himróí agus an cuiste chun é Corcaí like, you know, on board.
For the Cork GAA board, a shattering fortnight has at least brought a resolution. As well as improved medical, physio and gym facilities, the players were told they're likely to get more match tickets and better travelling expenses.
So peace has been bought with Cork's hurlers and footballers, but this strike and its resolution may steer the GAA into new and difficult territory. It may well be that this issue may return to create even greater difficulties in the future.
An slí go réic mar Páirc Chaoimh ná sin ábharc. Ní rá mar a ceappa seo ceann ceathrúna an Coiste Cúnta Corcaí an téann a bhíim. Ceann ag dul isteach ó ná go gahamíd an éonam gró mar ag imirtam.
Ní ein tú mór an seansa imirt le Corcaigh in a cheanta sin, ní ein tú mór an seansa imirt le Corcaigh sa bháile fiú, agus ina cheanta sin, ní ein tú mór an seansa imirt le Corcaigh sa bháile mar captain agus ag bócin craobh na món. Is rud faoile agus uthúla because ní tharlainn sé go hundú a corbet.
It was a real statement by that particular Cork team. It was one of those moments, you know, when you see a team kind of really click. There was a period of that game where they absolutely blew Tip away. Cork had the kind of dominance over Tip that I think all Cork hurling supporters dream about and wish for, you know, and want to witness, and especially down there in Páirc Chaoimh. And obviously it was the next step on to winning another All-Ireland, which confirmed that team as a very, very special group, but particularly post-strike, post-everything, that they'd come back and won their All-Irelands, and also in the middle of it all, beaten Tip in Páirc Chaoimh.
Players have serious issue with the decision taken by the county board that directly flew in the face of the agreement that was made back in 2002, whereby the managers were granted the right to pick their own selectors.
Both panels are willing to walk away from their inter-county careers, even though we obviously want to get back on the pitch as soon as we can.
From our point of view, Páirc Chaoimh was still a place that we wanted to be. We wanted to be training and playing there. Certainly some of the meetings with the board would have been on down there, and it would have been a question of maybe going into the Lions Den a small, but a lot of our careers were on the line that time, there's no doubt about it.
Certainly remember being down in Páirc Chaoimh a couple of nights, well into the late hours, waiting for a white smoke to waft out. No one who was there wanted to be there. Players, county board, media. You could sort of cut the tension at times with a knife. Over the years, Páirc Chaoimh played host to a lot of very happy occasions in terms of matches, but then they also had this other aspect where Cork GAA essentially tore itself apart and arguably are still repairing the damage to this day, you know.
You could make the argument that the departure of Páirc Chaoimh would hopefully remove physically as well some of the legacy of the disputes in Cork. It's funny how some of the core elements centred on Páirc Chaoimh, for instance, players having to use the gym instead of using gyms that were local and that were more convenient. You know, the famous story about players having to urinate in the gym before a championship match because they couldn't get to the toilet. You could say it maybe symbolises something, a part of Cork's GAA history that everyone would like to move on from. And maybe the disappearance of Páirc Chaoimh will take some of those memories with them, and it would be no harm all around if it did.
It was a remarkable game, really. It's something I'll probably take to the grave with me. Kerry had beaten us convincingly in the 07 final in Croke Park, and then we went through the whole strike over the winter, and you know, Conor took over in fairness when lots of other people probably wouldn't, and we only came together as a squad in late March.
We had come through a very turbulent time as a county as such and got through the league just about, but you know, I suppose I knew from a very early stage that we had a very special group of players. I suppose the reality was, at half-time, things didn't look at all well. I think we were down 1-8 to 3 points. I remember afterwards listening to the RTE pundits, and they had a right go at us at half-time about it. And but you know, started the second half, things didn't get any better. Nicholas Murphy was sent off.
And then Graham got carried off. Michael Cusson came on. So on a day like that, I suppose Cusson was a good target man. We got a goal. Cusson got a flick on a long ball, and that gave us a bit of momentum. And then Mark O'Shea, I think, and Dara O'Shea were sent off. It was one of those matches, there was just stuff going on. The second half was crazy.
And we slowly edged our way back in, and to win that day was probably one of the most satisfying experiences, I suppose, coming from where we'd come from at the start of the year when everything looked very dim. You know, to come out in a victory that day was very, very special.
You know, I remember meeting two of my cousins come storming onto the pitch at the end of the game, and you know, they were soaked to the skin, but they didn't even notice. I'd say it was just one of those really euphoric occasions, and I suppose it really put us back on the road in terms of, you know, confidence probably was at a low ebb because of what had happened in the previous couple of months on and off the pitch, and it probably gave us belief again, and it gave the team a platform to go on and achieve bigger things, which we did in the following couple of years.
You know, the thing about Páirc Chaoimh is that the crowd is so close, the lines are defined, you know exactly where the sideline is. Even under the stand, it used to be a bit soft at the time. In the summer, fellas could still get the hurley under the slitter. They'd be driving the sideline 60, 70 yards at the time. Some players liked hurlers, other players like Roland Park, but I just had a graw for Cork. You know, if you have good memories of a place, you love going back there.
Picked up here by John Mullane. He's got a point already in the game. Looking for some assistance and support. Getting it there from Paul Flynn. Ever the artist, ever the striker, ever the scorer. And that's a beautiful point by Paul Flynn. He's having a...
Anytime I got to play there, I really enjoyed it. And it's also a well-known graveyard for Tipperary teams, mainly because Cork met them in there. I suppose we gave them no reason not to like going there.
Tip the hottest of favourites.
You have to distinguish every other forward that's played the game away from Paul Flynn. The only currency Paul Flynn dealt with was in goals. So if he was taking a 65 even, I'm worried that he's going for a goal, right? So I knew damn well that this could happen, so it was no surprise in fairness to him. But he had that knack of rolling his wrists over the ball, and it looked like it might be going a foot over the bar, but it goes into the roof of the net. And he had great power. So in fairness to him, it was no surprise he was going for a goal.
Cummins at that time had a habit of no matter where the ball was hit, that he would go for it. That often put off the guy standing on the line was probably half expecting for it to be stopped. And I just thought that maybe, you know, if we got an lift here, that we get to half time, maybe still involved, heavily involved in it, or ahead. As it happened, that went in, and then Ken cut loose there in the second half and got some great scores. Owen Kelly as well. Dan came on. So everyone contributed, but we were conscious, I suppose, that it wasn't a great ground for Tip.
It's hard to admit as a coach that you didn't really know as much about a player as you might nowadays, but certainly John Mullane that day was on fire in the corner, and Ken McGrath was absolutely brilliant, like at his only doing things that only Ken McGrath could do, controlling the ball and the hurley and over the bar, and it was a great day for Waterford.
Waterford that day obviously did a real number on us, and I think no matter what we did that day, Waterford were going to win. Fair play to him after the match, the scenes after the game, great scenes for Waterford.
Waterford are the hurling champions, first time since 1963. An amazing success. It's a panel of remarkable players have done it in style. They come and they beat Tipperary, the Munster and All-Ireland champions. All those years of disappointments, it's all now forgotten. Waterford are the Munster hurling champions for 2002.
Far mór láidir gruaig sais finrúir.
Bhí rá chaisel agus bheadh Muhammad Ali bródú leis.
Clark!
The Galway people, the crowd remembered me and they wanted me to be part of it.
Appealing for it. He's coming! He's there!
Scial ag í Clark a bheits fi chabadjal leach ragail judí ag in lehanin lei.
Archie, let's go exercise. Extra fries? Did she say extra fries? Oh no, exercise. Oh, what happened to your knee pain, lady? Voltarol is a powerful anti-inflammatory ingredient that's retained in the joint tissue. It fights pain and inflammation all day long. Her little secret gone forever. Voltarol, the joy of movement.
just dropped. The #1 serum from the US. The Revitalift Filo Hyaluronic Acid Serum.
Hyaluronic acid. Dermatologists love it.
Our highest concentration of hyaluronic acid hydrates and replumps lines. 79% of women saw the appearance of wrinkles reduce. The new Revitalift Filo Hyaluronic Acid Serum by L'Oréal Paris.
Did you put on the indicator?
For as long as Irish mammies have known what's best, since the day you flew through your own driving test.
Insure your car and home with Aviva and get 15% off both, plus free travel insurance. For car insurance, you're safe in the hands of Aviva.
Don't be afraid to get creative this Easter. Ooh, don't mind if I Baileys. Oh, for a dairy-free and vegan treat, Baileys Almond. One for him. One for her. For him. Hello. Happy Easter, Grandad.
Farming never stops, neither do we. The Farming Independent is with you 24/7 wherever you are. On the move, on the farm, or at home, we've got you covered. With all the up-to-date agri-news, views and rural life reports. Farming Independent in print and digital. First with the farming news and views.
Seems like everything is getting thinner. But my Blood Elite pad, I thought it had to be thick to protect, but not anymore. New Always Discreet is made differently. Inside, it quickly turns liquid to gel and locks it away. For strong protection, in a pad I barely feel. Always Discreet.
And get the project moving. We were disappointed when we lost the Munster finals. We just weren't quite ready. It took another 3 weeks to get some commissioning works done. And I think we made the right decision there. It would have been, I think, fatal if we opened the stadium when it wasn't in good condition. So, look, we got 2 big games is wonderful, I think. We have Tipperary and Clare, certainly 2 great counties with fantastic tradition. I've had some brilliant games here in the past.
This one of the great occasions of Irish sport. It's an occasion not to be missed if you're a hurling fan.
Certainly the 97 game, in terms of just sheer intensity and quality, 97 would certainly be up there as maybe the best Munster hurling final played in Páirc, and it didn't even involve Cork.
Rud amháin é fórna mar an Clán ó Lochgammon ó Portlarig craobhna héir na bhuacant, agus bhuamar é in óca cuaig, ach nuair a bhíonn sé sin déanta agat, ní lach lead an job críochnathe. An rud atá út an sin ná a crothú go bhfuil an bua sin tiltte agat. Ní amháin bead a craobhna héir na bhuacant arís, ach bhuacant na fóir na móra sa tír, sin Corcaigh, Tipperdown agus Kilkenny. ach go háirthe tipperdáin.
We genuinely didn't like each other for what we stood for, even as hurling. We respected each other all right, I think that's fair to say. But I certainly at that age wanted to win a Munster title. They were getting in my way, and Clare were coming with everything they had to make sure that the traditional team were pushed back. And I think all that fueled the aggression, the anger, the hatred that probably both sides had for each other. But it certainly had a spice that I haven't experienced after that, those games against Clare below in Páirc.
The referee says, let's play on.
Sure, he drove us demented. For the 3-4 weeks coming up from the semi-final, he just drove us bananas with never beaten Tip in a Munster final. You'd swear we'd beaten everybody every year in a Munster final.
John Leahy beating the attempted block. He really forcefully hit that one and it drops over the bar.
It was the perfect arena, there's no doubt about that. Like the bold shape of it, when you're down on the pitch, you feel the tension. It always seemed to be the hottest day of the year every time we played Clare down there. Like the sweat would go out through your eyeballs even before the thing starts. Then it was just throw in the ball and just live at it, hammer and tongs. And it didn't matter how you won, you just tried to get across the line.
I just got kind of half weak coming up to half time. It started well enough, I thought, and we were all going well. And then they came back at us a little bit before half time and they closed the gap. And God, half time then down in those dressing rooms, there wasn't a puff of air. Of course, it was clammy and warm, and I thought I was going to be called ashore, to be honest. Somehow, I hung in there, and then, Sparrow just got a ball in the corner, broke the tackle, and there comes 40 off his shoulder, and like, what a goal.
And the referee sees the crash to the net.
Bhí mise cúpla slát ó cúil tipperdáin nuair a hála sin agus is cuiinlumm ag bécíil ar Brendan Cummins, take it out, agus an lua bhí ann an slua. Taobh hiad an cúil bhí sé dochreit ar fad. Agus an sin ag dridam leis an deire. Jeez, bhí mé ag féchan ar an óradár. Bhí mé ag íri ar an réitóir an fedóg deire nach a héide. Agus an sin tháinig an léróid chuig John Leahy.
As time went along, it was gassed. It was your pantomime heroes or villains then, like in the whole thing. And John Leahy just happened to be the one that day in '97 when we got the opportunity in the finish. It just hit the sod rather than the ball, and I can still nearly now picture him through the legs and through the crowd, seeing him getting the chance, thinking lovely. And it just didn't work out on the day, and the bigger roar came from behind me up at the Clare end.
And Clare are the Munster champions once again.
God, it was magic. It was just magic. The noise, and it seemed that everybody from Clare was there.
It was one of those classic Munster hurling finals that you would have heard about growing up and said, no, they don't exist. The ones where, the dust is rising in the goal mouth and the ground is so hard you can hear them galloping like racehorses. It was, on every level it was dialed up to the maximum.
The feeling afterwards was just great, and I suppose I cut loose a bit on the speech off the podium, all right, That was the gaffer driving us bananas as well, coming up to, we were on a bit of a mission going down,
Every Clare, man, woman and child came to Cork this weekend on a mission. Our mission was to show that we're no longer the whipping boys of Munster.
Sin tré a bhí ag Anthony Daly. Ní cuiinlumm riamh óráid níos iróní don rud a bhí tar éis titim amach. No an óráid a thug sé an lásin.
A lot of the current panel would have been young lads there watching that or at that, and we'd like to think it inspired them to have an ambition to do something like that someday.
It says anybody without a bid, when they shout their names. Anyone without a bid. Check it out. If you come round this way, you will get the breakfast roll and the bottle of water.
Fiúháin ag teach síos ar an gár an maidin bhí fécinn siar an léhananta úntacha a bhí a gcuing an seo. Cuidas na léhananta is fearr a bhí a gcuing riamh bhí siad an seo gcuing leis an áit plódathe, lán go bélan agus an atmosfér ann. Sin an rud is míní mar anis. Nuair éacinn tú amach an áit ó sús go hád an seo, is únta go deo an áit,
Chun sé ún agus áilteachtarm agus bród do páirt an bhórsa in Corcaigh. Bhís asach bhíl na gcéad seachta sé nóir oscail Páirc Chaoimh agus níochain ófánáid. Tá sé awesome mar an Americanach.
The pitch is what I remember with the goals are perfect, the grass is perfect, you know what I mean? It's just lovely, like. But for the surroundings and the whole lot, it's just amazing, like. You know, absolutely amazing. But to be a player again, to be down there facing into 45,000, you're like, it's just top class.
Who's going to win the match then? Tip. Does anyone here give Claire a chance at all? Walking down the marina, you're used to a certain experience when you get here. So that's going to take a little bit of getting accustomed to. But look, the initial impression is just fantastic, in fairness. If the matches match up to that, I don't think anyone will have any complaints. And certainly coming up in the lift, it's a lot different to the old park where, say, after matches, you'd have to climb down on people's shoulders, basically, to get quotes after. So I think every decrepit journalist like myself is looking forward to the comfort of the lift. But I suppose that's just another marker of the 21st century quality, I suppose, here.
Your first impression, actually, you know, when you come into the press box, is that the view is actually not that dissimilar to the old one, you know? It's lovely. It's really, really nice, and no, sure, it's clean and spick and span, and I think it's something everybody should be very proud of anyway.
Oh, it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, we're spoiled for comfort today. There was a buzz in Cork City last night from the Cork people as well, which was good, you know. You know, the atmosphere would be brilliant, and playing in this like is as good as Croke Park. Smaller, but as good, I would feel. And it's going to be brilliant for the players as well to feel this atmosphere with the crowd down on top of them. It will bring the best out of them, I'd say, you know.
Play more tip agus an clár, play Carú Crave. And here on Simic Dini, an atmosphere on agus massive go to kite for here agus all size, you know, branch wide the through on Shannon Stadium in Shaw.
There's a lot of mixed feelings about it in Cork, and there has been a lot of mixed feelings about the building of a new stadium in Cork, particularly at a time when there's question marks over whether the money could be spent in different ways. But when you do see this thing rising from the ground, the one thing that you think is certainly a county like Cork, regardless of how their things are going, they need to have a stadium that reflects their size and standing within the GA historically. And I certainly think that the new stadium is going to do that. And secondly, it'll be something to aspire to. I mean, Páirc Chaoimh, as years went on and as it developed its own tradition and its history, was somewhere you aspired to play. And it's somewhere you aspired to be seen to be playing. And I think it'll certainly be the case again with the new Páirc Chaoimh. I think it'll be bigger, it'll be better. The future for Páirc Chaoimh, it might well be a lot brighter than its past.
Beidir nach é an Ardán is fearr nó an stád is fearr sa tíre. Ach instantly hí móra sin. Leis an áit lán go béal, leis an sort éanta sa bhíidir an clár agus tipperdáin, ní raibh éon áit eile a bhí níos iarúnaí gus na cluichí sin, chun an atmosfér sin a chruthú, ná Páirc Chaoimh.
I can already detect people saying, you know, we had it tough in the old stadium and it wasn't glamorous, and I can see that mythology already building up. In a funny way, I think that'll be its initial legacy.
I certainly got the hair standing in the back of my neck. Once you're used to the fact that the stands are bigger and all that, it was still the same old pitch down there, do you know what I mean? And my young fella was down obviously at the game, you know, and he was talking about the size of the place, will I ever get to play there? And those are the kind of memories that fuel kids and all to go and actually practice harder and try to get the opportunity to play for their county.
Bhí roinnt bhac cluichí mór ón agus dá nó gachra bliain an son bhí Corcaigh I gcuine Ciarí.
de bhíoh sé lán bhí 5 míle ag na cluichí san, so measam go méid cuioine maithe ag na daoine ar an áid. Aon duine dimarán, Crave Club, idir bheanach, seoir, síseir, beidh daoine agus go beidh cuioine ortha ag bócant Crave Cúntaithe I Páirc I Chaoimh. Sinné an Mecca, hasín ó chuoine imardán agus bíonn an beachtaí faoi Páirc I Chaoimh.
Any sporting venue needs to get a bit of grime on its face, needs to get a bit of dirt underneath its fingernails, it needs to have stories to be told, it needs to have memory, kind of collective memory for people to come back to. But eventually, Páirc I Chaoimh, like every other great sporting venue, it will create those stories, it'll be the stage for those stories, it'll provide that opportunity to liberate and to elevate sporting occasions to another level and give another layer of excitement, importance and sort of just joy to the whole thing,